Hi everybody, Christy from Voice Chasers here, and I've got Kat Cressida with me again, part two of the interview. So I know that the last time we were in a very noisy pizza restaurant. I apologize, I know the audio was not perfect and you couldn't hear Kat all the time.
The pizza was amazing.
The pizza was great, the food was awesome, we had fun, and we had great conversation, but unfortunately I know a lot of you couldn't hear what we were talking about. We had really good stuff. We wanted to do a second part to talk about some of the stuff we talked about before, so it'll be a little bit of repeat of things that maybe you couldn't hear the last time. And also I wanted to go over some other stuff that we actually didn't get to the last time. So thank you for joining me again.
My pleasure. Thank you for flying back out.
My pleasure. So since the last time we talked, one of the coolest things I think that you've done is you've got to be a part of that Disneyland auction, and you did a lot of live streaming from that event.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about, how you got involved with that event. Tell me a little bit about the event and some of the cool stuff that you saw, because I was watching some of that live feed and going and drooling over some of that Disneyland stuff was really super cool. So.
Yeah, it was neat. I mean, it was the first. That gallery is very famous for Disneyland artifacts.
That's
what they call it.
The Van Eaton
galleries. Yeah, they're basically the primary resource for getting all sorts of classic Disney classic animation art, original drawings, original sketches, all that stuff.
Okay.
But their big event is in the fall. They do this big Disneyland artifact. So it's all kinds of crazy original-ish from the parks.
Yeah.
So, original costumes, a lot of the original signage, the vehicles from the attractions people bid on.
Wow.
A Mr. Toad car or whatever. So that's bananas. And people fly in from all over the world and they're online. That's the huge event. This one was a smaller, it did have a little bit of the Disneyland stuff, but it was more all the classic stuff from like mostly pre-1950s.
Yeah.
So it was interesting for me because even though most people think of me, especially from my social media and from the Disney world, as being like the ultimate Disney hoe and that I know everything, I really don't. I'm not into as much the old Mickey Mouse, the black and whites, the early animation. Where I really fall in love is sort of in the 1940s classic animation, Pinocchio, all the way up through the parks.
Yeah.
And, sort of through I would say the late 60s in terms of Disneyland and all that. That's like my real passion. Yeah. So, but it was really cool. We were streaming live. There was an auctioneer who I interviewed who was bananas good. I mean, he was teaching me how to talk super, super fast. And that was a lot of fun.
And could you do it? I mean, how did that go?
I failed miserably.
Yeah.
Not that fast because it's like rolling off his tongue without him missing a beat.
Yeah. And
brilliant. And he's, there's no script. It's like he's literally just like, I'm not on the phone. Okay, over to you. I'm live in the on. I'm just like, and you can hear everything clearly. It's brilliant. So it was a really neat experience, and the periscoping was far more popular than I thought it was going to be. Yeah.
Awesome. And that whole auctioneering is almost like an art in itself. Just a video. I mean,
it is.
There's not many people that can do that kind of talking fast.
He was saying there's about 50 professional auctioneers, like at the Christie's and the top of the line, who literally they just travel constantly, just like as if they're a rock star, to different states, different cities. And he was doing livestock, one weekend's a livestock auction, another one's cars, classic cars.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really neat,
And what kind of stuff did you see at this auction that you were like, oh my gosh, that's amazing? I know that I saw that animation desk, but...
the studios. Yeah, I mean, that stuff was really, really neat. They had the original animation desk set that the animator would use with the little,
with the backlight.
That would, And... So some amazing classic animation art. There was some Disneyland stuff like the Davy Crockett original, coonskin cap and that sort of thing, and original Mouseketeers that Annette Funicello wore.
Oh my gosh.
That was cool. You can go to my Twitter. It's ad nauseum there.
We'll actually link to that in the video. We'll link to some of those. Yeah.
If you're interested in that, there's literally a whole day's worth of videos that you can pull up and watch.
So I know we talked about Disney the last time, and I know you're a big Disney fan. I'm going to go over some of it since a lot of people didn't get to hear some of that stuff. All right, good. So your dad worked with Imagineering back in Disneyland. You got to spend a lot of time at Disneyland.
Yeah.
What when you were there as a kid, what was like your favorite attraction or things that you always wanted to make sure that you got to go to?
I mean, what really stands out for me was that it was uber important, like of the most supreme importance that I would get to go on the Peter Pan's flight. There's a strong connection in my family to Peter Pan. The 1955 stage play. No, the Mary Martin.
Oh, the original.
On Broadway. Was that?
I don't remember if it was
52 or 53.
Yeah.
And then of course and then Peter Pan came in 55, the animated version. So, in my family, that was a very big deal. We were all singing the Mary Martin musical. I know it still from beginning to end all the way through. I'm not going to sing it. And so Peter Pan was a big part of my upbringing, and I think I played Peter in whatever little school.
Oh, really?
Constantly, yeah.
Yeah.
And then high school. So that whole flying thing, especially to a kid, it's just magical. It's still magical, but especially then. So, and that was always a big deal because, of course, that one, there were seat tickets back when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But still, the line was an hour.
I was just going to ask you, was the line as long as it is now, too?
Same. Bananas. And because it's so special and different.
Yeah.
And yet we wouldn't get to it until around dusk, until they were sort of like getting ready to close. So there's always this, I remember there being a lot of drama about, we'll get it next time, and me going, no, it's what defines Disneyland for me.
Yeah.
So that, and of course a lot of the attractions that the more sort of e-tickety big attractions, Indiana Jones, Star Tours, Space Mountain, those weren't around when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Those didn't come along until I was, some of them in my teens and then some early 20s.
Yeah.
Tom Sawyer Island.
Yeah.
Which breaks my heart what they've done with it, and
I know.
little by little, chipping away pieces of it. But as a kid, it felt like we would spend hours there. I don't know how long we technically were there, but going up and shooting the rifles that would make the sound, and the full island was open back then, so you could explore the entire everything, and you could climb up. I climbed up into trees and sipped lemonade from up there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thinking no one could see me. Of course they all could. And they had the security officers walking around wearing like the F troop.
Yeah.
the Union Guard uniforms they would wear.
Yeah.
And all the caves, Injun Joe's Cave and the various bridges. So that was amazing for me. I loved it. And again, it felt like we spent half the day there, but I'm sure we were only... And canoes. Canoes a lot when I was a little kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Are they still there? Are they still functioning? No.
Anything that's on the water, the rivers of the
that's right. It's all
Star Wars land, which not a fan.
So sad.
Not a fan, but yeah, I love the Mark Twain.
Yeah.
Pirates of the Caribbean was a really big one at one point in my life. Now here's something that I have not ever said out loud.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, but at one point in my life, my mom was a single mom, and so we moved around quite a bit when I was younger, both East Coast and West Coast, and I decorated my room. An entire corner of the room was Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, wow.
And when I say I went to town on the Disneyland authenticity of it, I was recreating that island at the beginning with the parrot, and I'm sure my mother, I was 12, I'm sure my mother was mortified because I had bought hundreds of these plastic pieces of 8, and I had a chest, and I had a sword that I got from some antique store, and I had a giant map, and I had a parrot. It was fascinating.
You had a parrot too?
I had a parrot. I think it was stuffed, but it was Jose from Three Caballeros.
So at least it was still Disney, right?
Yeah. I can only imagine what my mom must have thought, because I was recreating that particular tableau, and I was very proud of it. It was perfect.
Yeah.
And but it obviously didn't really belong. And the rest of the room was all girly, hunter green and flowers and
and then there's the pirates.
And then there was the whole Pirates of the Caribbean.
Pirates Corner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you do that a lot, decorating and wanting to recreate stuff that you saw either at Disneyland or other places? And...
Disneyland.
Or was it just mostly
Disneyland was? We had a Haunted Mansion thing for a little bit, and that I remember I was 13. We moved on from pirates
to mansion.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, and this is totally true, a lot of people who are into the, totally true, it's like, a lot of people who are into the mansion these days are, you know, it's a very serious story for them, and I don't want to misspeak, but they call themselves, you know, there's the regular goths, and then there's people who are deep into it, the dark goths, and then there's the creepers and the mansionites, and so there's all these different.
I didn't know there was that many levels.
Yeah, I learned it from Twitter.
I had no idea. Yeah.
So they're into the celebration of death, so to speak. You know, they really love everything that's dark, kind of like the character from the Tim Burton.
I was just gonna say all that Tim Burton.
Yeah, the
style
Winona Ryder. What was that character? The little girl in Beetlejuice.
Oh, in Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So they really loved that. They celebrated the afterlife and all of that. That wasn't where I was coming from at all. It was like purely it's a Disneyland attraction, and I think because I was so young, and of course, kids back when I was a kid, we were much younger because we didn't have all the technology and everything. You know, you stay a kid a little bit longer, I think. But I really, there was no part of it that for me was celebrating death. I don't even think I made the connection to the fact that these were ghosts and therefore the people had died. But of course, for my mom and all her friends she would bring by, it was like, and I would literally play the little like, da, da, da. Like I had a tape recorder hidden back behind so that when friends came over, I would like do the whole presentation.
That's great.
And I forgot all about that because again, I was 13.
Yeah.
And then like life happened. And then someone at a family dinner, like maybe 5 years ago said, well, it makes sense that you're now like permanently entombed in the mansion because of course you grew up like worshiping it. And I was like, and I didn't remember that because my only memory of the mansion is that I was terrified.
I was just going to say, the last time we talked, I remember you told me how terrified you were of it. So was this stage after the...
No.
Oh.
No.
So you're still terrified of it, but
that's what I'm saying is like, to me it just represented a classic attraction at Disneyland that I was sort of in a Halloween sort of way recreating. Yeah. Purely in a Halloween level of like, yay, treats, you know, Disneyland. Yeah. No association with what really was going on because I was terrified. I would never open my eyes through it. So this is really funny. I took some folk, kind of played VIP escort and tour guide at the park on Monday, and they did all kinds of really cool things, set up as a VIP staging, they call it. And they did this really cool thing where they I don't know, should I say this out loud? They stopped the line. Oh. And basically like we came in we basically came into that main hallway foyer through another entrance that I didn't even know existed by the Hidden Pets Cemetery that's gated off. So we entered through there. My guests had never been. So they're getting to experience walking into this foyer with the organ music and then Paul Frees starting his narration, which totally freaked them out, especially when you're there alone. Yes. With no crowds to feel protected. Yes. And then we went into the elevator, the stretching gallery by ourselves. Yeah. And, we emerged finally into the hallway where there was a whole crowd. But we got the whole VIP thing. Oh. But what was really funny was on the way in, walking up, there's one part I'm going to close my eyes for that just still scares me to this day. And it's the Edgar Allan Poe, at the very beginning when you first enter, there's someone going, let me out in the coffin. Yes, yes. It's very, with the raven, it's very Edgar Allan Poe. Yes. Buried alive kind of a thing. And still to this day, there's something that churns in me. Wow. On a deep level of that's terrifying. So I just don't look at it. I just won't look. So wouldn't you know that as we basically approach that tableau, the ride stops. Oh, no. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, our friendly ghosts, whatever they say, it's usually when there's someone who, handicapped needs some assistance. Yeah. We got stuck there and we stayed there for about 3 minutes. And you just had to hurry. With my doom buggy literally flat out just facing this horrifying tableau. And it's still, the music and everything's still going, so we're hearing the full, still screaming and trying to get out. And shrieks going on in the background and the raven cawing. And I was alone. I let them go in their dune buggy.
Yeah.
I was alone by myself, stuck. And so at a certain point, just to feel like safe, I was like leaning out of the dune buggy going, "Hey guys."
Oh, you were in there by yourself. So your guests weren't in there.
Yeah, they were one ahead of me. So I'm stopped here, and they're like already sort of slightly moved on. And so they got some really funny pictures of me like leaning out of the dune buggy with the coffin behind me.
Oh gosh.
So
I want to see that picture.
Yeah, it's funny.
Wow. So we were talking about the auction, which was kind of that live announcing. And one of the things we didn't get to talk about the last time was the live announcing that you do for ESPN, which is a totally different VO thing than most of the stuff that's just, recorded, pre-recorded. What kind of preparation do you have to go through when you're doing that live announcing? And
you're talking about the draft.
The draft, but like in general, like I know you were the first. She was the first female draft announcer, which is amazing.
The only one.
The only one.
Live.
Still the only one.
Yeah. So it was really cool. That was in 2010.
Yeah. Which is like, breaking through that glass ceiling, right?
Yeah.
So what kind of preparation did you have to do for that specific event?
It was I think I had about a 2.5 month lead in, and I didn't know what the draft was when I got hired. In fact, when the call first came in, I was completely confused. It came in from the actual director and exec producer, Jay Rothman, who is still the guy in terms of exec producing everything NFL for ESPN. So huge, Monday Night Football and Sunday Football and everything. So, and he was exec producing and co-directing the draft. And he had called me live. So he basically just invited me to do it. I didn't audition for it. I had never heard of it before. And he's calling me from his cell phone from a Disney cruise ship because they were doing ESPN week from a Disney cruise.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a really, really bananas kind of whole, and I didn't know who he was. He was like, "Hey, I'm a fan of your work from PTI, and we're thinking of going a different direction this year, more glam, more Academy Awards-ish, a little more sass and sex appeal to it. So what do you think?" And I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what the draft was, and it's not usual in our world for the exec producer director to call you direct. Usually it's a call that's coming in through reps. So there was a part of my brain going, this probably is not like real, or someone made the wrong call and it wasn't really for me. I just had no frame of reference for it. So I got off the phone, immediately called my reps, and they knew immediately what it was. One of them knew immediately what it was. And then I called back the cell phone, and sure enough, it said, "This is Jay Rothman, exec producer NFL. If this is a show it was like a whole rundown of how to get in touch with her. I was like, okay, so this is legit.
Wow.
This is legit. And then he circled back, I think about maybe an hour later, so he could get better reception because they were going to be at port, and he was going to be able to talk better. And we had more of a conversation, and that's when I found out it was for football. That the draft meant, the NFL draft. And then after the basics got worked out and the reps got involved in all that, then I had hard prep to do. So I ran out and bought a bunch of magazines, the ESPN pre-draft edition, and then there was, I think Sports Illustrated had a pre-draft edition, and went online a bunch to learn about it. And needless to say, the joke I make is that I wish that movie, The Draft, what was it called, The Draft?
Oh, yeah.
With Kevin Costner?
Yes, I never saw it.
It's a great movie. I've actually seen it now about 80 times because I think it's hilarious and adorable, and I relate to it now. I'm like,
I'm sure.
Oh my God. But that had not come out, and for someone who's not familiar with what the draft procedural is, it's overwhelming and crazy. I mean, it kind of sounds like a mishmash of the lottery meets hard negotiations meets the Academy. I had no frame of reference as to what the heck.
Yeah.
And people kept trying to explain to me, well, they could have first pick, but then they could trade it for it sounded like fantasy football in a large sense, and people doing trading cards. I just had no understanding of what the days were going to look like. But I do know each one of my male friends was massively impressed that I was getting flown out to do this. And I read as much as I could. I did get index cards because the main part of what I was going to be doing, I wasn't expected to do commentary. I wasn't expected to be a broadcaster.
Okay.
I was just expected to make the announcements when they were ready to come up, who the pick was and where they were from, and a small blurb of kind of like the Academy Awards of what their highlights were if they won the Heisman or been up for the whatever most valuable player. And so I had index cards of I think the first 60 that were expected that at least 20 to 30 of them would make first day. And I was only doing the first day.
Oh, okay.
So, but since we didn't know who was going to get called up, I basically had the top 60, the strongest 60 that were expected to go up, so that I could learn the pronunciation of their actual names of their school, make sure I had that right, and then any other football technology or hometowns. So I would literally, for 2 months I was running around with these index cards. Test me. Test me. Show me the name and make sure that that was crazy.
I can't even imagine doing that live too. Just so much that can unexpected, right?
I gotta say, and there was no delay. That was the other weird, most things that are live,
yes,
including the Academy Awards, I think there's a 7-second delay or something, just in case someone curses. For my part, they'd never done this before. And so there was no delay.
Oh, wow.
So it was a very odd feeling to know that whatever came out,
you can't go back and fix it later. Yeah.
And looking back, I still think, wow, what a tremendous amount of trust they had that I was not going to guff make any gaffes. No shits were going to come out. And believe me, those were, I just remember thinking, it's like Disney times 80.
Yes.
No curse words. Nothing, not under your breath, nothing the whole day. You have to stay totally clean.
Yes.
And it was an amazing experience. And I had 2 producers who were literally handwriting stuff on index cards, putting them on the music stand because, of course, that's how fast it's changing. So whatever script we thought we had, they were just handwriting and changing things. So I'm looking at these pencil scrawls going, oh, and Dominic and Sue, okay, yeah, I know that. With 3 seconds warning. So, and I'd literally just hear, and they had the cans on me, I'd hear 3, 2, and then on the one was supposed to be me going. So
that just sounds nerve-wracking. I can't even imagine.
It was, and it's amazing. I'm still astonished that it went off gracefully and that nothing. It's like that adrenaline thing that kicks in. And yes, did I prep? Yes, but had I ever done anything like that? No. And
but they knew you were a pro, and they know they could trust you to get it right. I
guess, but yes, and I had done live before for Disney on a couple of events, but still with no chance for it, just, and in a field that I wasn't used to talking. Movie stars and TV stars and Nickelodeon, those names, I'm all sort of you hear them a lot, These names I didn't follow football. Now I do, actually. Houston's. Go Houstons.
Yeah.
But the Texans I'm big into the Texans.
Yeah.
But back then I knew nothing. So it's still astonishing to me that it happened and that nothing went bad.
Yeah. What does PTI stand for? You mentioned PTI. That's how he was a fan of your work at PTI. What does that
Say
mean?
it with me. Pardon the interruption. It's the biggest sports show on. It's really the biggest sports show on TV. Pardon the interruption.
Is that an ESPN show too?
Yeah.
And so you were already doing that show. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's been on for about 11 years.
Okay.
And that's Mike Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser, and they are, it is true to say they're considered two of the leading sports authorities of all time. They're Washington Post sports reporters.
Okay.
And the show is a classic, and I was lucky to be pulled on to that show as the voice of it.
So what are you doing? Are you doing announcing on that show, or
all the billboards and sponsorships and this segment brought to you by.
Gotcha.
Sort of stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's how he knew you. And then, are you still doing that show now? You're still doing that show?
Yeah, it's every day.
Every
weekday.
Every day.
Yeah.
And is that, what else are you doing? Are you doing anything else on ESPN? I know you've done some other shows. Right?
Yeah, this year I got to do the Super Bowl 50 special, which was really neat. And I've done a lot of narrations for Sports Center specials, like a lot of things leading up to the draft, like Gruden's QB camp, quarterback camp, which comes at the same time as the Combine is going on.
Okay.
See, I sound like I know what I'm talking about.
I was going to say, I know zero, so I'm just nodding and going,
the Combine is sort of the, if anybody saw The Blind Side, sort of the private, closed, no media allowed, only top football coaches from all the top college, teams, not colleges, for all the top NFL brands, all the teams basically are going out and seeing which players and seeing them perform. They run through like obstacle courses and drills and all kinds of, it's a full, I think it's 3 days?
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe a week. But it's a full private viewing of all of these top stars from all these top colleges go out. And it's when I hope I'm getting this right, but it's basically when your husband's not.
Yeah, my husband's not over there. I'm looking at my husband who knows a lot more about sports than I do.
All the coaches are basically deciding along with their teams who they're going to, that's how they make the decisions as to what they're going to do in terms of picks and order of picks and where the offers are going to go.
I see.
And it's quite a big deal. And I just found out actually that the media is not allowed.
Oh, even the media is not allowed?
It's completely private. They can be off-site and do interviews off-site, but they're not allowed at the actual Combine. So
interesting.
Yeah, it is really cool. I've learned a lot about all of this. So
I'm sure. So now you've become a sports fan after all of this, or are you?
Well, I've always been a baseball fan.
Okay.
Yeah. Dodgers. Go blue. Huge. And also growing up in the East Coast Mets. With some Yankees. I mean, when you're a kid, you're just like, yay, I'll root for whoever the home team. So I became a diehard Dodger fan, as a teenager and then an adult, and I go as much as I can.
Still even today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky because of some of the ESPN work and a little bit of Fox Sports. I got to know the Dodger staff, and so they're very kind to me. I get to bring people. And
that's nice.
Go, yeah, beautiful. So anybody who knows my Twitter knows that when I'm at a game, suddenly there's like a tweet and a photo coming out every minute. So of me stuffing my face.
While you're in the game, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a lot of fun.
And you become a football fan also from all the...
Well, at least I got woken up to the reality of what most of America cares about. So that was good. And I learned a lot, and at least could talk about it. But I didn't really get into the game and into and following an actual team because, of course, LA, until as of this year, we didn't really have one. When I was a little girl, the Rams were here, right?
He's nodding. My husband's nodding.
So yes, didn't go to any of them, and I only know because there were posters on the walls of kids that I would play with. But in terms of following it, that's only been in the past year and a half.
Okay.
Following the Texans, and it's really in large part because of that awesome show, the HBO Hard Knocks, where they show the training camp going on for them. It's a reality show where one team a year is featured, and they go behind the scenes and follow their training camp and who's getting dropped before the season. I kept asking everybody, is this real? Like it's a reality, but is this actually happening?
Yeah.
And not staged? And like, yeah. I'm like, it's a real reality show. This stuff's really going on. And it's people's lives and livelihoods. So it's not just drama for the sake of drama. So I just fell in love with that team. They have so much heart, so much talent.
Yeah.
JJ Watt is, a monster. He's a beast. He's incredible.
Yeah.
And I've really gotten into it. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. See, so your work kind of got you into things that you might not have ever thought about,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so
video games too is another one where I don't play for the most part, but I certainly now have learned a lot about it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that next. There's the Marvel game that I know that you were working on.
The Electra.
The Electra, the Marvel.
Yeah, so Electra, she had like her day in the sun. There was a big trailer that I was like, it was all Electra and it was all me, and that was really cool. So she she had like a big upgrade that happened in terms of her abilities and her costumes. And again, I'm not thoroughly entrenched in it, but apparently it's a big deal because she suddenly was in the spotlight, and a lot of upgrades happened with her characters, as well as a few others. And, it was a big deal and all over the Twitter for about a month and a half, and now people have moved on to whatever else is going on. I know Guild Wars is about to do the 3rd season of this latest DLC.
Okay.
And I'm speaking a language that I don't quite know, but I do know I'm part of, I know I'm a significant character in whatever's coming out soon.
For Guild Wars.
Yes.
Do you enjoy that video game, the craft of doing the VO for video games? I know it's very different than doing like animation or looping and all that kind of stuff.
I love it.
Yeah.
In fact, and I'm probably in the minority of this, but of course, a lot of my initial sort of momentum in voiceover was in animation.
Yep.
And that's really awesome, and I feel very grateful. I love the actual sessions for video games, I think, in some ways more, because they're a lot of times a lot more realistic. A lot of times, I'm not, I'm generalizing here, obviously. And of course, like everybody in the world, my biggest dream would be to do a Disney animated feature where it's very realistic. But since I'm not Sandra Bullock, that's, I get to do like ADR and stuff like that. So when you're doing a video game script, there's such detail and such intricacy, and you're really taking people on a story, and sometimes you get so immersed in that story, and the cool dialects and the cool new languages, they can be, major mind melds, or, they really kind of mess with you because you're speaking some sort of a dialect. Sometimes it's Eastern European, sometimes it's British, sometimes it's Mid-Atlantic. Usually those are the main ones that I've come where you throw that on. And then you're also speaking a foreign language in terms of what the terminology is, and the planets and the lands and the people's names. I just did another Star Trek Online.
Oh, cool.
And those sessions are usually just about an hour, and they're not strenuous, usually, vocally. There's usually just a lot of conversation, dialogue, but still, even the humans, playing a crew aboard some Starfleet other ship, you get a sentence that's full of foreign names and foreign planets and all that.
And you have to learn how to pronounce things. I know we talked about that a little bit the last time, just how hard that is. When you go into a session and they give you a script, if it's the first time you're working on the video game, how much do you know about the character and or the game? How much background do they give you? Because I know in animation they'll show you a picture of the character, and usually you'll get a little bit of background depending on what it is. But for video games, I know the script is usually pretty thick. And how much context do you have? And when you're reading a line, how much context do you have? Like when you're how do you know what the other person you're saying if you're interacting with anyone?
Well, oftentimes I'll at least give you the leader line of what you're responding to. Sometimes the director will choose to deliver that to you. But truthfully, you get, I think I'm speaking honorably, for 95% of them you get very little context. They'll try to fill you in sometimes, but then again, sometimes you sign NDAs, and the humorous thing about that is they don't tell you what the game is. They don't. They've got like code names for them.
Yeah.
And they've got code names for the characters, and so they'll just give you a basic context of, so you're a general leading your troops, and you're about to go to war. Okay, at least that's enough to have an emotional context, but you don't really know much more than that. They're purposefully keeping it very vague. Or, I remember I did a title, it was one of the Doom, was it Doom? Doom 3 for Blizzard. And I remember they were saying you're a high priestess, and your son has been stolen from you and destroyed in front of your eyes, and now you want to seek vengeance, but so I had a basic gist of what the character was going through, but
most times you don't. How do you even draw how you're supposed to deliver the line? Do you just rely heavily on the director to tell you?
They do give you the emotions a lot of times. Okay. They're usually pretty good about on one of the columns it'll say, aggravated, annoyed, empowered, war cry. So you just kind of da, and you just. I think that's probably the only real skill that sets voiceover apart from any other kind of acting, is that you have to, I think I'm speaking truthfully here, you have to just immediately dial into whatever that emotion is, and it has to sound authentic and like you're really in it, and then you're going to jump right out of it into something, and you're going to give a line of 3, and you're going to give an A, B, and C, and you're going to change the pace. That's what I think really sets apart voice acting from on-camera acting, is that it's just sort of an on-command, hit the button, do it now, in the timing, and you don't get to say, let me just get into my space, let me just get into that feeling. Yeah. Okay,
you don't have time for it.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's almost instinct, like an instinct that you kind of have to build up over time.
And you learn, for me, I'm really big on wanting it to sound authentic. And I'm sure the directors are too, not alone in that, but you learn to just jump inside. It feels to me like I'm jumping inside different parts of, so fear is down here, anger tends to be here, heartfelt and sad is right here, or lump in the throat. So you sort of just quickly are jumping through these different segments, quadrants within your psyche, feeling your emotional whatever.
So you know kind of where to draw that emotion from.
Yeah, where to go.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think that you just sort of get used to that.
Yeah, over time you just kind of develop that skill, right? So you cover kind of all the bases of VO, with whether it's looping or animation or video games and trailers. Is there one particular area of VO that you prefer, kind of have a preference toward when you're doing work?
Yeah, I really fell hard for the part of the voiceover world that's really considered trailers and promos, and to me that's storytelling in a very sort of pure, straightforward form. But I love that part of that also now is a ton of voice matching, because when the movie trailers companies and the studios need to come out with these, they often need to find a quick voice match for any number of the celebrities, whether it's an animated show, animated feature or a live action feature. And that's a very specific part of the voiceover world. Prior to that, I did a lot of, I would step in one day in a loop group, just sort of temping in to do voice matches for them or a specific celebrity I was covering for that. So not part of the loop group proper, but sort of the guest for the day as part of the loop group. And a lot of ancillary products for Disney where they would need a voice match for, Jessie or any of the other projects that I've done for DreamWorks. And as I became more enamored with voice matching and getting specific on that craft, that's when movie trailer companies and the studios started to want more and more and more to have what's called scratch. It's very interesting. All of it. It's sort of a big, messy, jumble, awesomeness of we need it right now. The terms they have for it are rush, hot rush, and then this sounds hilarious, like it's a disco song, super hot rush. And that's DEFCON 1, drop everything, they need it within 20 minutes kind of a thing.
Wow.
And so at your home studio, you're just going through all these different voice matches throughout the day. Sometimes you get 1, sometimes you get 5, and I love it because I love the craft of voice matching. So for me, it's a chance to keep honing those skills and getting stronger and stronger. And sometimes the big goal in this world, and this is so bizarre, I just be talking about this because I don't think people talk about
this is cool stuff, yeah,
outside of it, but is to go to finish. So when you're a narrator, any one of those awesome male voices that you hear narrating a movie trailer, it's called narration, by the way, even though they're the trailer voice, but they're the narrator voice of it, narration. the idea they're hoping is to be the go-to-finish voice attached to the campaign, so that the 30 million versions of that particular, movie trailer, their voice will be attached to it. If you're ADRing or scratching in for a celebrity, the hope is that you remain attached as it keeps going through the various approvals, and then you'll go to finish, and then your voice will be in the trailer. And so you just kind of keep, at this point, my voice is probably scratched in, and I'm not exaggerating, all over town. Little matches are probably there on maybe 35 different trailers for different projects as they're going through the various stages of production. But then the studio will come along and go, we want that one, and that one, and that one. So you just hope it's sort of a lottery thing, in a way you're just throwing as much as you can out there, hoping that you go to finish, and it's very cool and exciting. I'm more excited about the process of it, and as our joke is in voiceover, your day job is the auditions, because you're doing 30 million of them, and then the hope is that, once or twice or 5 times a week, yay,
What percentage do you think are, for you, like, actually go to finish? Like, if you could guess, just out of curiosity.
It's hard to know because they hit at different stages. I'm very, very fortunate, very blessed. I just signed with pretty much, one of the preeminent management companies that this is really their specialty.
Cool.
And yeah, Jason Marks.
Congrats. Yay.
So I'm very excited about that. I also just signed with Abrams.
Oh, wow.
Very exciting.
Awesome. That's great.
It's been a lot of changes and a lot of awesomeness and incredible teams on both sides. So it really varies. Sometimes you find out that, 3 in a month went, and that's awesome because you're attached to all those different versions. Sometimes you can go months going, wow, I'm on all of these and none of them. It's just an odds thing that's based on whether or not that trailer house sold those particular spots. And that's totally separate from the narration side of it, which is totally awesome too. And I love being, I'm the gal voice for Barbie, Monster High, and American Girl.
Oh, wow.
The trailer narrator voice for those brands. So
yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I was going to say the trailer world seems to be a very male-dominated field, I think, for the most part, I've noticed.
Oh, absolutely.
And it feels like another glass ceiling that you've kind of broken, like with the ESPN stuff. It feels like another area where you have kind of broken that through that ceiling.
Well, there's been gals, who definitely paved the way before me.
Yeah.
And of course, the whole Gone in 60 Seconds spot was the first one where in the theaters you actually heard a female voice.
Yes.
And it was it was more of a, I don't want to say character as in goofy, but it was a specific sexy sound that they wanted that was sort of matching the Angelina Jolie character in that movie. So it was cool. And they've done that a few times. Magic Mike also had a gal voice attached to it. And so you're seeing it more and more, certainly.
Yeah, definitely.
Particularly on TV, maybe the TV version.
Yeah.
And again, I'm lucky with all the Mattel. Those are for foreign, theatrical, DVD, and TV spots. And that makes sense, for that brand.
Sure.
To have a young, sweet sort of a sound going on. And, here and there, it's starting to happen more and more. I know for the Tinkerbell movies.
Yes.
A great gal voice.
Which are great movies, too. Yeah.
So, but it's definitely still predominantly male, and it's been fun to at least be sort of in the mix along with other really amazing gals who certainly have gotten there before me and really have paved the way.
And talking about voice matching a little bit, I think one of the first things maybe at the beginning of the career might have been, was it Tarzan?
Tarzan was one of the features.
Yeah, one of the features where you did some
Kala.
For Kala, yeah.
Glenn Close's character.
Yeah. What was that experience like?
Oh my God, that was magic.
Yeah.
That was, so when people, even to this day, and I think unfortunately, well, it's Disney's fault and DreamWorks' fault because they love to shoot those promotional B-roll things where you see Tom Hanks and, they're all just hanging out at microphones, voicing,
Yeah,
and it looks
like it's
they're
so
just,
easy.
Yeah, and they're just having a blast, and maybe there's a script, maybe there's not. So that makes it look like that you're doing it to picture. It makes it look like in real time, they're running, because they'll show it. They'll make it look like the character's doing it to, or sorry, the actors, celebrities doing it to it. And that's not the reality. I'm very rarely, and only in emergency situations for an American or, a mainstream animated anything, TV show, DVD, or feature. The animation's done way at the end of the process. They're getting the recordings up front so they know how to animate the character.
Right.
And we get storyboards. You get to see a storyboard or the artwork, but it's all happening in your imagination and through the director's great direction in terms of timing, because they know they can visualize the final animation and they know what they want. So that was a crazy experience because that movie was done. And did we talk about this?
We didn't talk about this last time. That's why I brought it up.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the movie was done, and it was in final final mixing.
Oh, wow.
Music was done, sound effects were done, everything was done, and it was at Sound Deluxe in Hollywood that they did it. And we auditioned through Disney character voices, and that was very exciting. And I remember I studied like a banshee. I mean, we were told it was gorilla.
Yep.
And that we were going to be doing gorilla sound effects, but that they wanted it to sound somewhat humanistic. That human emotions would be transparent through what was going on. And it was for a Disney animated feature. I don't know if we knew it was for Tarzan.
Okay.
I can't remember. Maybe. No, we probably didn't know, because they try to tell us. They usually tell us very little so that it doesn't get around whatever's going on.
Yeah.
But I just scratched my head like a monkey. But that was really exciting. And I studied the Sigourney Weaver movie, Gorillas in the Mist. And I studied what was the one with Charlize Theron with the...
Almighty Joe Young?
Yeah, I studied that.
Yeah.
And I remember renting King Kong, but it was of no use because he doesn't really, there's not a lot that, he makes some big scary sound, but particularly Gorillas in the Mist. I watched over and over, and this is back when there were cassettes, so I was cassetting, recording off TV. And went in the next day, and, because very quick, I remember we didn't have a lot of time to prep, went in, auditioned for it, and they just put us through our paces in terms of, okay, now imagine that, you're rocking a little baby. Now imagine that the little baby gorilla is getting taken away from you. And now you're running for your life. Now you're singing a lullaby, but it's, and it had to stay gorilla-ish. And part of my brain's going, I have no idea what I'm doing because there's no primer for this. And part of my brain's going, you sound idiotic. You just sound like a moron.
Yeah.
And part of me's going, oh, this is kind of cool. And I left. And then I think we found out maybe the next day, you got it. You're going to report to Soundstage A at Sound Deluxe. Here's the act, And I was very, very excited. And at that point, they said it's for the Disney animated feature Tarzan. You're going to be signing an NDA. You can't tell anybody really about this. It stays between, us, your agency, and again, I was not prepared for what I walked into. I walked into a giant soundstage. It looked like a scene from a movie. There, up there on the screen is the final animated. I met both directors of the movie, who, of course, one of them went on to direct Enchanted.
Glenn Keane and
Kevin Lima.
Yeah.
No, Glenn Keane was an animator.
Oh, he was the animator.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're right. Yeah.
But Kevin Lima, who animated, I think he also animated Call Me, but he was one of the directors. And it was just like, yeah. And there's the sound, there's two engineers, and then, blah, blah, blah. And it was very serious for them because it was Glenn Close's character. And they had done, of course, a pass with her, but they hadn't gotten her to sound gorilla. It didn't sound as gorilla-ish as I guess they were hoping. no knocks to Glenn Close, because I could never do in a million years everything that she does. Right. But that's what it was sort of voice matching her timbre, but being a gorilla and then also being humanistic. But what I most remember about the day, I mean, it seems like it went fairly, I don't remember being stressed about my part. I think once I got there, it was sort of like, okay, now I just follow their direction. But the magical experience of like looping in, matching what was going on the screen and seeing this final and
a Disney film with all things, like, right?
You know, and it was stunning. And that first sequence is the sequence of the, you know, she discovers the baby.
Yes.
There's like a lot of, you know, and then the baby sticks the. I remember we spent a long time on that because the baby sticks the fingers up to her nostrils and she's like.
So did you have to like?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. How was she gonna make it sound realistic?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So and then there's the cougar, the bad, begins with an S, saber. I don't know. The bad cougar chase scene and the sequence with the baby and saving the baby, and then they finally get away safely, you know, in the boat. And then there was a second sequence in the jungle, and it was the terrifying sequence where Clayton, I think, is having at them with the gun, and so we did both of those. It was fantastic.
Wow. That's awesome. So you got to the Disney animated feature thing, kind of. Let me know.
The voice matching, yeah, through
doing the voice matching.
Absolutely.
Have you done any other feature voice matching, either or looping on features?
Feature. Well, I've definitely done looping for you know, definitely some Miyazaki, some Disney.
Oh, yeah.
But that was more than just. I mean, that was like getting to do for the feature character, and I wasn't scratching in. I was actually still attached to it. So that was really cool. But no, I haven't been lucky enough to be like a Jim Cummings and get to be the lead character, or you know, Cree Summer. That hasn't happened, and I think in this day and age, probably it's going to remain, you know, celebrities and all the A, B, and C roles for a long time to come.
A shame.
All we can hope for is a supporting character here or there, and but yeah.
So is there anything else you're working on that you could talk about? I know we talked about some stuff the last time, but I don't know if anything else has come up since the last time we talked that you're allowed to talk about that's not NDA.
Because we don't know when commercials are going to release, and we don't know when. So anything that I've currently just recently done in the past few months, yeah, we're really, you know, and I'm not like a recurring character on something. And there's the video game, the big one, Master of Orion.
Yes. With
Mark Hamill. That's dropping. I was told in August.
Oh, great!
So that's about to drop, and they've announced the cast, so now I'm allowed to say that.
Yes.
So that's very exciting. And the Guild Wars, which I think I'm currently on it. I'm going to have to write to someone at ArenaNet and ask if I'm A, allowed to discuss the character now, and B, if it's formally out. So I will ask that question. And then all the scratch stuff, no, I'm not allowed to talk about.
Of course.
All the voice matching, not allowed to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's PTI every week, every
PTI.
day.
See now for the sports fans out there.
Lots of ESPN, and all the, you know, I mean, this is not glamour stuff, but all the Barbie trailers.
Yeah.
Those are all.
Which is cool.
Yeah, but those are ongoing and happening all the time, and very excited to be part of that too. So
good.
I know it's the strangest thing, but in our world, so much of what we do. Unless it's a recurring character, we can't really talk about.
Which is a shame. It's such
I don't know.
shame, I think.
Most of us went into voiceover, I think, because we're not so tied to the recognition. We're more excited, I think.
That's why we exist, though. So.
You're teasing us.
Yeah, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah. I mean, because you don't get that recognition, and so there's so much talent in that, like you and everybody in the field. So it's a shame that more people don't know who you are and who other people are. So we definitely know.
I think when you Google, plenty of the past recent all pop up.
Yeah.
And sometimes I find out about it, like Elektra. I had no idea that I was allowed to talk about it, and suddenly there's the trailer out, and people are sending me the trailer with my voice, and I'm going, cool, I can talk about it now because it's out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's always like that.
Cool. And the last time I mentioned, I'm going to say it again because if you aren't following Kat already on social media, her social media either through Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, all at Kat Cressida. If you're not doing that and you're a Disney fan or you're a sports fan or you're a VO fan or anything, the content that she puts up there is just great. It's really good, and we retweet it all the time because I just love all the stuff that she.
Yeah, I'm into
the nuggets of stuff.
Deep Disney history is
Yes.
my jam. So
yes, good stuff. So
Yeah.
make sure you follow Kat if you aren't already. And I thank you again for your time, a second time.
Yay!
Yay!
Thanks for
And this-
flying out for this.
Yeah. And this time maybe you can actually hear us talking.
Yay.
So thanks, Kat.
Thank you, Christine.